Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, there was a tzaddik, a makubal, the Yisoid B'Sherish HaAvoda, who on his deathbed, he was able to look around the room, look at his students, look at his family who had gathered together, and he said, Ubergesprung, dilagti, I leaped. I leaped over this world. I leaped through this world. Ubergesprung, dilagti. And the story goes that when Rabbi Nachman, Zchus Yagen Aleinu, heard about this, he praised the notion very much. And he says a person has to learn how to be able to say, dilagti, that I've skipped over this world. Now, there are many ways to understand what it means to be doileg, el haharim, to leap beyond or through or above this world. Some would be world denying, saying that one should remove themselves and extricate themselves to the best of their ability from the heaviness or the experience of this world, which is certainly a mahalach that's expressed in certain writings of tzaddikim, never to mean actually world denying, but it's a perspective that I have to, lechatchila arib, or go beyond it immediately without even paying too much attention to what the difficulty might be. But there are other ways of looking at the notion of dilagti. Again, they're all representative of a singular truth of how to function in this world. But there's another way that I want to think about looking at this notion of dilagti, of Übergesprung, of what it means for a person to be able to say that I leaped through this world. One of the things that weigh us down, one of the burdens that human beings carry in this world, and a burden in the sense not that it's negative, but it means that the journey takes more energy and it's easier to become tired or exhausted and need to rest and to take an accounting of oneself along the journey because of the heavy burden. Not that the burden is a bad thing, the burden is just something that needs to be carried. But one of the things that holds us down and bogs us down and makes us feel the thick connection to this worldliness is the experience or the reaction that we have to the day-to-day experiences that we encounter. For most people, anything that goes against a person's desire or expectations, very often those desires and those expectations are not even enunciated consciously to the individual who's desiring and expecting. It's so rooted into our hardwiring that the mind is perpetually in a state of expectation. It's also rooted in a state of true expectation for something massive, for the coming of Mashiach. And therefore, if we can't identify with that, there's a perpetual state of expectation where I wake up and I face the day and I'm already expecting certain things from reality, from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Because those are the things that I've gotten in the past. And when things don't go the way that I expect them to go, when the world appears to be pushing back against me because it's not aligning itself in perfect unity with my desires, so then I become frustrated, I become resentful, and I allow each and every experience to leave a mark on me. I carry the reminder of every cut that lays me down. I carry the burden of each encounter. Now, encountering existence is enough. Going through the day is enough sometimes to make a person tired. It takes a lot for a person to function from morning until the afternoon, until night, to live a full lifetime, to live a birth, to live a midlife, and to live a death of sorts as well. Hayomim b'kolo tishma'u, each day is its own ecosystem of the grand arc of history from beginning, middle, towards the end, which reverts back to the beginning. And so experiencing a day is heavy enough, but to carry a reminder and every heavy feeling of anger and resentment as a result, or frustration as a result of things going in the opposite direction of how I wanted, it doubles the burden. Now, not only do I have to move through life experiencing experience, but now I carry a trace of a negative perception of that experience. And in my mind, I feel I have to carry all of those resentments and frustrations because that's the only way I'm going to remember how unfair it is. And so we hold on to these ancient storehouses of resentment and burdensome emotional connectivity to things that are rooted very often simply in the frustrated expectations that we carry ourselves unknowingly with. And one of the ways that the tzaddikim taught us to really try and move beyond this, not to move beyond experience itself. There's no moving beyond experience, but there's a movement away from the way that I deal with experience, from the heaviness that I leave experience with. Because while I might have to go through experience, and balkarcha chatachai, a person lives in this world not against their will, because it's the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it wasn't our own will. We understand it would have been simpler. It would have been easier. It would have been more pleasant, perhaps. But here we are bearing the burden of experience. But the Bechira is, what do I allow experience to force me to carry? And what the tzaddikim point out, and it starts off lahalacha, not only lahalacha, but the very outset of halacha, and Shulchan Aruch or Chaim, and the mappah, the tablecloth that arranges life to allow the Shulchan Aruch to be more presentable and more focused. That light of the Ramah, the light of Rav Moshe Isserlis, where he says that a person has to live with the idea of Shavisi Hashem lenegdi tamid. David Malka Mashiach says, Shavisi Hashem lenegdi tamid. I have placed HaKadosh Baruch Hu in front of me always. I have placed HaKadosh Baruch Hu in front of me always. Whatever I was experiencing, wherever I was, wherever I went, I was placing HaKadosh Baruch Hu in front of me. And that pasuk for the Poskim becomes almost a meditative device that is a very strong suggestion for a human being to really try and develop, of perceiving in their own ways, envisioning in one's own way, without any of the unrefined elements of the metaphysical meditations that one might associate with thinking about the letters of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name, but to contemplate, and perhaps even to prepare reminders for ourselves of Yud Kei Vav Kei, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hayahoy V'Vihya, that Hashem is the source, the ground, the upkeep, the sustenance, the inner and the outer and the middle, the up, the down, the bottom of all of existence. Shavisi Hashem lenegdi tamid. It's an Eitzah Tova. And that may have been true, and it still is true. It's becoming more and more true. It used to be true that certainly a person can meditate only on those letters. A person didn't need to translate this necessarily into an emotional experience. And this was what happened with the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, when we couldn't think about Shem Havaya anymore. We couldn't operate in that perspective of Shavisi Hashem lenegdi tamid, where I'm contemplating the letters, because existence was so difficult sometimes that it was hard to avert one's eyes from existence. It was difficult to raise one's eyes, raise one's einayim, back up to that Shem Havaya Ha'atzmi, to look only at the letters, or the letters that are not even letters, the Shem Havaya Bli Osios. And so what the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh revealed, and this is found in Tzavos HaRivash as well as Keser Shem Tov, that when we look at this pasuk, Shavisi Hashem lenegdi tamid, it doesn't only mean an imperative to contemplate the four letters, Yud, Kei, Vav, Kei, and to contemplate what that means, as the Rambam lays out for us in the beginning of Hilchos Yisodei HaTorah, as the Mekubalim lay out for us, as all of our tzaddikim lay out for us, of the mitzvahs aseh, of Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Lo Yisiyah, not to have any other gods, to contemplate godliness. All of those things that the Shem Havaya means, there's another meaning, and perhaps this meaning can only come to when the first meaning seems so difficult. When a person can no longer live in a world of Shavisi Hashem lenegdi tamid, the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh says, read the word Shavisi a little bit differently. Shavisi comes from a language of Shav, Shivayon, equal. Shavisi Hashem lenegdi tamid means that with the name of Hashem, I have been able to access a point of hishtavus, of equanimity, of an ability to look at my encounter in this world, as the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh describes, whether they're praising me or whether they're breaking me down, whether I am running forward to you, Rabbeinu Shalom, or whether I am falling away from you. Bein ba'ayel, bein benafak, whether I am ascending upwards into a state of spiritual closeness, or I'm descending down into a space of spiritual exile and silence. Im eisek shamayim sham'ata, va'atziga sha'ol hinecha, whether I'm running upwards or I'm running down. Shavisi, hishta'avus, equanimity, all things equal. Experience is experience. I feel experience. I encounter experience. I have to do what's in my control to elevate and alleviate any of this comfort and the hidden sparks of holiness found within each moment of experience. And I have to learn how to accept that which I can't control about experience. But the Shavisi Hashem lenegdi tamid, to live with a sense of equanimity, of all things being equal, is to experience itself without judging experience, without determining the value of experience in this moment. But Shavisi, it's equal. It's not good, it's not bad, it's equal. All things are equal. It's the equanimity that's rooted in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is not simply a psychological device of entering into a state of equanimity, of all things being equal. What Rav Aaron Halevi of Straselia brings down more than anybody ever before him or after, rooted in the teachings of Rabbeinu Azriel, the secret of Hishta'avus, the secret of the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Shav HaGamor, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is equally present above and below, to the extent that above and below make absolutely no distinction from the perspective of godliness, so to speak. That whether it's the highest imaginable place, the lowest imaginable place, it's all the same in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's pure shivisi, shivayon, hishtavus, shav, unification of opposites, which is the reason for the emergence of opposites, so that we can reveal the deeper secret of the impossibly paradoxical and confounding miraculous nature of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's equanimity, the hishtavus hagamor bein be'elyonim, bein betachtonim, bein ba'ayin, bein ba'ani. And so what the Baal Shem Tov demands of us, what he offers us, is the secret of Shivisi. It's not only learning how to be okay in the moment, of not to judge the moment too heavily, of not to get caught up in my resentments about the moment, but to deal with reality first and foremost. And then when one thing is done, I can pay attention to what I'm feeling, but not to mistake experience for my perception of experience, but rather to allow myself to see it as good, as not even good, as present, as the same. Derech Amuna Bacharti, David HaMelech says in Kapitel Kuf Yud Tes, Derech Amuna Bacharti Umishpatecha Shivisi. I have chosen the path of faith. I want to live in a path of faith today. Life is going to be what life is. I prepare myself. I acknowledge the deepest part within me, which is a chelik Elokai Mimam Mamish, and I can access that even before washing my hands from the impurity of death. As the Tzaddik Lubavitcher Rebbe Schlusa Yogan Aleinu points out in Kuntras Inyanil Shemuhus Toras HaChasidus, that Moida Ani is that identification with the true self that allows me to encounter existence. But now I have to also prepare myself with Shivisi, with Derech Amuna B'charti. I choose this path of Amuna, and therefore Mishpatecha Shivisi, Mishpatecha Taim Rabba, whatever it is that's happening in the world, to me, around me. Yes, let me be an activist to Kedusha and try every ounce of effort to fix, but let me have hishtavus in it. Let me be okay no matter what. Let me maintain that inner point of Kodesh HaKadoshim, of Itrosechem Biroisheim, of the crowns that exist within the mind that are unmoved by experience, but rather they remain steadfast and equal in all things. This ability to not care, to not judge or attempt to hold the resentment or the negative emotional energy. Again, I'm not talking about the natural expression of emotions that one does not necessarily have bechira over. I'm talking about the bechira that we do have, which is allowing ourselves to get carried away by the natural flow of our emotions and our ruminations, or to exert some semblance of effort and strength and precision of the mind to close the doors of the mind to those ruminations. We know where they take us. We have to say no to them already, to the degree of our capacity, each person in accordance with their own level, each person in accordance with their own understanding. And this level of equanimity, this level of experiencing life where I'm not so offended by life, and I'm not so celebrated by life. When people say yes, it's not about me. It's when people say no, it's not about me. That's about them. The metzius is that I am experiencing life, and I have to have a silent equanimity of all things being equal. I'm not moved. It's a sobriety of thought. It's a willingness to remain steadfast in the innermost point of one's mind, to not allow experience to touch the Kodesh HaKadoshim of the self. As Rabbi Nachman Schuso Yogan Aleinu writes in Torah Kuf Nun Hey, in Likutei Moharan Chelek Aleph, with regards to Arichas Apayim, learning how to take a deep breath, learning how to live with the Emunah of Eretz Yisrael, learning how to walk ever so slowly and confront every ounce of experience in all of its fullness, which is what Eretz Yisrael represents, the malchus of it all, to feel existence in all of its intensity, to allow one's feet feel the ground of Eretz Yisrael, to breathe the air of Eretz Yisrael. At that point, a person has one option: to either learn how to breathe slowly and deeply and to be calm and patient with a certain sense of equanimity, of calmness and silence of the self, or to be moved to a degree that I can't catch my breath, ketziras ruach, like we experienced in Mitzrayim. And Rabbi Nachman says as follows: because the ability of Erech HaPayim to breathe deep and to eliminate the anger or the resentment that is emergent when I allow my emotions to be dictated by how I feel about experience, rather than connecting to the hishtavus of it all, the unification of it all, that it's all the same. I have the ability to create a sameness of thought. The experience is different, but the thought is same. And kol zman that there's avodah zarah in the world, kol zman that I'm rooted in my avodah zarahs, my stable, concrete assumptions about the world, about myself, and about other people. Then I'm going to be angry. I'm going to find reasons to be angry. If I am so steadfast in what I need, I'm my own avodah zarah, so then naturally there's going to be anger abound. Aval al yidei emuna, but through emuna, shu hepech avodah zarah. If I choose the path of emuna, derech emuna b'charti, if I identify that I am going to engage this day with an emuna in the goodness of all things, in the absolute and equal presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in every moment, of ein od milvado kepshuto emashma'o, that above, below is all the same to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's all the same. Hishtavus hagamor shivisi. If I choose Emuna Shu Hepech Avodah Zarah, which is the opposite of Avodah Zarah, then Nispata Lacharon Af, that I'm not going to be so angry anymore. I'm not going to be so resentful because I'm not going to make a pesel out of that person who just offended me, or that person who didn't answer the phone call, or that person who said this, or whatever it was. But to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu in all of it, Shivisi Hashem L'negdi Tamid, and by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's Shivisi, I'm okay, it's you, Ribono Shel Olam. It's always been you. And when that anger dissipates through choosing a path of faith, which allows me to let go of my resentments, which are rooted in the sediment of my identity and the idolatry of the self, anger is dissipated, and deep breath comes into the world. The ability to be patient, the ability to wait and to inhale slowly but surely without a need to judge or to rush anywhere. So it turns out that it's through the emuna of derech emuna b'charti. Rabbi Nachman doesn't use this pasuk, but derech emuna b'charti, and that allows a person to enter into that place of deep breath. Shiya'arich apo al kol davar bilbul umniya sha'over alav b'tfilaso ba'avodaso. What does it mean to have arichas af? It means to take a deep breath when it comes to anything that creates a bilbul, a prevention, a symptom in my experience of frustration or resentment, and instead of being broken and sad and despondent as a result of this, I allow myself to be mizgaber in my avodah in this world. Sheyisbol esakol, I can carry it, Ribono Shel Olam. I can carry it because I'm not carrying the burden of every experience. I'm not carrying every cut that laid me down. I'm moving through experience, dilagti. I'm skipping over it. Yes, I'm going through experience, but ubergesprung. I'm jumping beyond the emotional hangups and the resentments and the sediment and the baggage that we carry unnecessarily when it comes to how we judge experience, how we judge others, and how we judge ourselves. And then I'm not going to feel that the burden is too great, because now all I have to do is do the day. I have to get through the day. Hayoim, now I can bring Mashiach today because I'm no longer stuck in all of the complications of the mind and the systems of symptom management that become our illusions and our fantasies and our perspectives, etc., etc. Now I can live with a certain level of tamimus. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to stop. V'lo yichpat leklal, and I'm not going to care whatsoever. It doesn't mean I'm not going to care about what the experiences are. It doesn't mean I'm not going to care about what type of experiences I have. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop trying to be the best person that I can be. What I'm not caring about is how I feel as a result of that experience. I'm not focusing on the resentment. I'm allowing movement to move through me. I'm allowing life to move through me. I'm jumping over life. I'm not getting bogged down by all of the million reasons and justifiable reasons and resentments that I have in each and every moment. Lo yichpat leklal, I don't care. Dilagti, I jump over it. And at that point, the person does their thing. Continue to do your thing. And jump over everything. Dilagti. And I'm not going to feel them. They're there, but I'm not going to feel them. I'm not going to be bogged down by them. Because Shavisi Hashem L'negdi Tamid, Hishta'ava, silence, a quiet, deep breath, and a grin to Kedusha, like we see by the true tzaddikim that know that at the core of everything, there's nothing but utter self-sameness of all things, ruminating and rumbling underneath everything. Ein oid milvado, the sameness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kavyachol, which is Pashat betachlis apshitas beli harchava b'chlal u'b'chlal. Simple unity on every degree of simplicity imaginable. Quietude, silence, shivisi. And at that point, I have the ability to learn how to breathe deeply, that I access this through emuna. I access this through emuna, which is the ability that gives me the ability to live in this world, to grow. It's the gravitational pull that keeps our feet on the ground. So the derech of shivisi is entering into the day, and for 10 minutes, and the next 10 minutes, hopefully, and the next, to whatever degree we can, to say all things equal. They look at me one way, they don't look at me another way. It's okay. I get what I thought I was getting. I didn't get what I thought I was getting. It's okay. It doesn't mean I stop being mishtadel to bring about the best possible outcome. It means that I'm not now stuck, emotionally paralyzed with the resentments and the anger and this feeling that I need to hold on to my anger, because if I let go of my anger, then all of the things that I'm angry about are never going to be resolved. But in truth, when we come to recognize that there's nothing that needs to be resolved, I'm not talking about things that need resolution. Things that absolutely need resolution, it's not about dilagdi. A person can jump as much as they want over the traumas of their lives, but without resolution, it's going to be stuck in the same process of the repetition compulsion. I'm speaking about the lowercase t traumatic elements, and God forbid, if a person has a different type of experience, it's a different avodah of dilagdi, but it's not the avodah of jumping over it. It's a different avodah. Here we're talking about letting go of the resentments and the hangups, because we're so afraid. We're so afraid of letting go of what we feel is our righteous right, and our real claim to the fact that things are sometimes unfair. But this is the secret of derech amuna b'charti mishpatecha shivisi mishpatecha taim rabba HaKadosh Baruch Hu. However it is, whatever it is, shivisi. B'shav, Baruch Sha'amar V'haya Olam. It's all equal in front of me. That's what gives me the ability to say Baruch Sha'amar V'haya Olam. The opposite is what Rabbi Nachman refers to as avodas alilim. It's this enslavement to our expectations. It's our enslavement to the expectations. Lahavdil, as it says in the big book, what I've come to understand is that with more expectations comes more frustration. With more acceptance comes more serenity. That in accordance with my expectations and what I demand from the world is going to be the level of my frustration. In accordance with the acceptance of all things, there I'm going to find shavisi. There I'm going to find serenity. There I'm going to find the secret of Yishuv Hadas. There I'm going to find the ability to bein ba'ayil, bein b'nacha. And this is a taste of L'asad Lavo. This is the secret of the Shivayon that's going to be Neskala. When we can recognize that it's equal down here already, so we're not going to be so surprised when Mashiach Tzidkenu comes to reveal that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is down here as well, equally to what he is above, and when HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals it himself. We're not going to be so surprised because we've already tasted from that Hungarian wine of Shivisi, of the knowledge that Shivayon, the ore of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, the ore that above, below, I'm taking a deep breath, I'm dealing with the circumstances as they are, and I am reserving judgment. I'm reserving judgment, and I'm reserving the deep, natural human tendency, the all too human need to entrench myself into the thickness of that experience and into the swampy kind of toxic emotional excess that's there, because I need to feel something. And I'm allowing myself to remove myself, and I'm allowing myself to live a little bit lighter, to live with the secret of simcha. The Balatanya teaches us, based on language in Chazal and Maseches Sukkah, that there are two types of measurements. There's a tefach atzuv and a tefach soichik. A tefach, a measurement that is referred to as an atzuv, as something that is rooted in sadness, and there's a tefach soimich, which is something that is described as rooted in happiness. And the Balatanya points out that the measurement of the tefach atzuv is when there is no space between the hands. And so it's a more constricted type of measure. And a tefach soimech, a happy tefach, so to speak, is one when there's a revach between the fingers, when you measure it in accordance with the empty spaces that exist between the fingers. So we see that to a certain degree, the harder that I try and grip reality, the harder I try and grab each and every experience in the hope of undoing all of my resentments and finding that righteous indignation that I have and feeling that all of my emotional needs need to be answered up by reality immediately, and I'm grabbing it by the lapels and not letting go, then it's no wonder, if I've never let go of a single moment in my life, it's no wonder why it feels so heavy. But when I open up my fingers and I slacken my grip and I open myself up to the possibility of a tefach soichik, of a laughing tefach, not a tefach soimech, a laughing tefach, a tefach soimech, a tefach soichik, where I crack it up a little bit. I open my fingers and I allow myself to see the fact that I don't have to carry everything. I could put it down. I can put it down. I can put it down. And Be'ezras Hashem, when a person learns the secret of Shivisi, as the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh teaches us, that in all things I find HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In every scenario, whatever is taking place, I am able to connect directly to the Eitz HaChaim. And in that sense, we taste from the Eitz HaChaim and we can learn to live forever, which means to say we can experience this world and the next world in this world, in the secret of dilagti, of Ubergesprung, of leaping through and beyond this world, Be'ezras Hashem.